Greetings, dear listeners. Before I begin my story, I ask you to support this channel. Please subscribe and hit the like button. It helps stories like this be heard. And write in the comments what city or country you are listening from. It always warms my spirit to see how many of us there are. And now, enjoy the story. The Unexpected House Guests. Margaret Ellis, Maggie to the few people who truly knew her, pulled her silver Honda Civic into the driveway of her stucco bungalow in Sunhaven, a gated 55-plus retirement community just outside Sarasota, Florida. It was a Thursday in early March, the kind of day where the air smelled like orange blossoms and the humidity hadn't yet turned vicious. She'd spent the afternoon at her weekly bridge club, laughing over bad bids and strong coffee with the ladies from Building 12. At 72, Maggie had finally carved out the life she'd dreamed of for decades. Quiet mornings on her lanai with a book, watercolor classes on Tuesdays, evening walks around the lake watching the ibis settle in for the night. No more double shifts as a nurse, no more raising kids alone. No more saying yes when every part of her wanted to say no. She popped the trunk, grabbed 2 reusable grocery bags, one heavy with fresh produce from the farmer's market, the other with a bottle of decent Pinot Grigio she planned to enjoy alone on the patio tonight, and headed toward her front door. The door was unlocked. That was the first thing that stopped her cold. Maggie always locked her door. Always. Florida, even in a gated community, wasn't the kind of place you left things to chance. She pushed it open slowly, grocery bags still dangling from her forearms, and froze. There, in the middle of her pale blue living room, stood her daughter Lauren, 38 years old, still wearing the same half-apologetic, half-defiant smile she'd perfected as a teenager. 2 enormous rolling suitcases flanked her like sentries. Behind her, on Maggie's cream-colored sectional, sat Lauren's husband, Todd, scrolling on his phone. And sprawled across the floor with iPads and juice boxes were Maggie's 2 grandkids, Harper, 12, and Ethan, 9. The scene hit Maggie like stepping into a parallel universe. "Mom," she said brightly, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. "You're home early. We were going to have everything settled before you got back." Maggie didn't move. The bags were starting to cut red lines into her arms, but she didn't set them down. "Settled?" she repeated quietly. "Lauren Elizabeth, did you just let yourself into my house with 4 people and 6 suitcases without asking me?" Lauren blinked. That quick double blink Maggie knew meant she was stalling. "Well, yeah. Todd lost his job last week, the whole division got axed, and the landlord's doing emergency mold remediation in our townhouse starting tomorrow. It's going to take at least a month. We didn't want to blow our savings on a hotel or Airbnb, and you've got the 2 extra bedrooms just sitting there." She gestured around the room, as if the empty guest rooms were a public resource waiting to be claimed. Maggie finally stepped inside and set the grocery bags on the kitchen island with a deliberate thud. The sound of fresh peaches rolling across the granite seemed louder than it should have been. Todd looked up from his phone long enough to offer a sheepish wave. "Hey Maggie, thanks for this. We'll be out of your hair soon, promise." Harper glanced up from her iPad. "Grandma, we brought the Nintendo Switch. We can play Mario Kart tonight." Ethan was already kicking off his sneakers, leaving them in the middle of her woven jute rug. Maggie felt something inside her chest harden, the way concrete sets. Slow at first, then suddenly immovable. "Lauren," she said, voice low and steady, "I asked you a question. Did you ask me if you could move in here?" Lauren tucked a strand of her highlighted hair behind her ear, an old nervous habit. "Mom, please don't make this a thing. It's family. We're in a bind. You live alone. You have the space. I figured you'd be happy to help." There it was. The sentence that crystallized everything Maggie had been wrestling with for the last 5 years, ever since she'd moved into Sunhaven and started tasting what peace felt like. You live alone. You have the space. As if her solitude were a vacancy to be filled. As if her carefully curated quiet, earned after 40 years of noise, chaos, and self-sacrifice, was simply wasted square footage. Maggie walked past them into the hallway and opened the door to the first guest room, the one she'd turned into a sewing and craft room. Bolts of fabric were now pushed against the wall. A suitcase lay open on the daybed, spilling children's clothes. Ethan's Spider-Man comforter, apparently brought from home, was already draped over her antique quilt. The second guest room, her office, with the desk facing the window overlooking the golf course, was similarly invaded. Todd's laptop and charging cords snaked across the surface she used for paying bills and writing letters to old nursing colleagues. She stood there for a long moment, feeling her pulse in her fingertips. Lauren appeared behind her. "We'll be super respectful of your stuff, Mom, I promise. The kids have school online for the next few weeks anyway because of the mold thing, so we'll mostly stay out of your way." Maggie turned slowly. "And how long is a few weeks?" Lauren shrugged. 4? 6? The contractor said it could drag if they find more damage. 6 weeks. 42 days of 4 extra people in her 1,800-square-foot home. 42 days of shared bathrooms, constant noise, meals to coordinate, her routines disrupted. 42 days of being needed again. She walked back to the living room. Todd had kicked off his shoes, too. Harper was now raiding the kitchen cabinets for snacks. "Everybody?" Maggie said, her voice carrying the calm authority she'd once used in hospital corridors during emergencies. "Shoes stay by the door. Snacks get asked for, not taken, and nobody unpacks another thing until we talk." 4 heads turned toward her. The room went quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Lauren crossed her arms. "Mom, come on, we're already here. It's almost dinner time. Let's not do drama." Maggie met her daughter's eyes. "This isn't drama, Lauren. This is me asking why my only child thought it was acceptable to move her entire family into my home without a single phone call." Todd cleared his throat. "Maggie, we're really grateful." "I'm not talking to you right now, Todd," she said, not unkindly, but firmly enough that he stopped. "I'm talking to my daughter." Lauren's cheeks flushed. "Because you always help, Mom. You helped when I was pregnant with Harper and Todd was deployed. You helped when we couldn't afford daycare for Ethan. You helped when we needed down payment money for the townhouse. You've always been there. I didn't think I had to ask." And there it was, the truth laid bare. Maggie had spent decades teaching her daughter that her time, her space, her energy were unconditionally available. She had created this expectation one yes at a time. She walked to the kitchen island, opened the Pinot Grigio, and poured herself a generous glass. The kids watched wide-eyed. Lauren hated when Maggie drank in front of them, which is precisely why she did this now. She took a long sip, then set the glass down. "Lauren, sit." Lauren hesitated, then perched on a bar stool. "The rest of you, living room, shoes on the mat, iPads off for now." To Maggie's quiet surprise, they obeyed, even Todd. When it was just the two of them at the island, Maggie spoke. "I love you. I love Harper and Ethan with every cell in my body. I love Todd because he makes you happy most days, but I am 72 years old, and for the first time in my entire adult life, I am living exactly the way I want to live. I wake up when I want, I eat what I want, I leave dishes in the sink if I feel like it. I spend entire afternoons reading or painting or sitting on my lanai doing absolutely nothing, and that is not emptiness waiting to be filled. That is peace I fought hard to earn." Lauren opened her mouth, but Maggie held up a hand. "I am not saying you can't stay. I'm saying you should have asked. And I'm saying that if you do stay, it will be on terms we agreed to together, not because you decided for me." Lauren's eyes filled. "Mom, we have nowhere else to go. We're scared. Todd's job hunt isn't going great. The hotels around here are $200 a night. We can't—" "I know," Maggie said softly. "I know you're scared, but fear doesn't give you the right to take away someone else's boundaries, even your mother's." They sat in silence for a long minute. Finally, Lauren whispered, "So what are you saying?" I'm saying pack the suitcases back up for tonight. You can all stay until Sunday morning. That gives you 3 days to find alternative housing, an extended stay hotel, a short-term rental, a friend's couch, whatever. I will help you look. I will even contribute toward the cost if it's reasonable. But come Sunday, this house goes back to being mine alone, unless we have a written agreement about rules, timeline, and chores. Lauren stared. You're seriously kicking us out? I'm seriously protecting the life I have left. There's a difference. Todd appeared in the doorway. Maggie, with all due respect, that's pretty cold. We're family. Maggie looked at him steadily. Family asks, Todd. Family respects, no. Family doesn't assume a 72-year-old woman's solitude is a resource to be used without permission. Harper's voice piped up from the living room. Are we in trouble, Mom? Lauren stood abruptly. No, baby. Grandma's just setting some rules. Maggie almost laughed at the understatement. That night was tense. They ordered pizza because no one felt like cooking. Maggie retreated to her bedroom early, locking the door, a gesture that felt both childish and necessary. She lay awake, listening to the unfamiliar sounds, Todd's low murmur on a phone call in the hallway, Ethan asking for water twice, Harper and Lauren whispering long after lights out. At 2:17 a.m., she got up, padded to the kitchen in her robe, and poured herself another glass of wine. She stood at the sink looking out at the dark golf course, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. She cried for the young nurse who'd worked nights so Lauren could have dance lessons, for the single mother who'd slept on couches so her daughter could have the bedroom, for the woman who said yes so often that no one ever thought to ask. But mostly she cried because she knew tomorrow would be harder. Friday morning, Lauren was frosty. Todd was on his laptop submitting resumes with a grim determination. The kids sensed the tension and stayed quiet, which was almost worse. Maggie made coffee, sat on the lanai alone, and opened her laptop. She booked herself a room at a small inn on Anna Maria Island for Sunday through Wednesday, 4 nights away, just in case they didn't leave. Then she researched extended stay hotels in the area and emailed Lauren a list with prices and availability. Lauren didn't respond. Saturday was worse. Lauren barely spoke to her. Todd took the kids to the community pool to give everyone space. Maggie spent the day cleaning bathrooms and changing sheets in the guest rooms, preparing the house to be hers again. At dinner, grilled chicken salads on the lanai, Lauren finally exploded. I can't believe you're doing this to us, to your own grandkids. What kind of grandmother puts her peace above her family's safety? Maggie set her fork down carefully. The kind who finally learned that peace isn't selfish. The kind who knows that if I let you stay without boundaries now, you'll assume you can do it again next crisis. And there will be a next crisis, Lauren. There always is. Todd tried to mediate. Maybe we can agree to 4 weeks, Maggie. We'll pay utilities, groceries, help with chores. No, Maggie said simply. Not this time. Lauren stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly. Fine, we'll be gone tomorrow, and when we're sleeping in some crappy motel with mold of our own, I hope you enjoy your precious alone time. She stormed inside. Todd sighed and followed. The kids looked at Maggie with confusion and hurt. Grandma, are we in trouble? Ethan whispered. Maggie's heart cracked open. She pulled him into a hug. Never, sweetheart. I love you bigger than the sky. This is between the grown-ups. Sunday morning arrived with brutal clarity. Maggie woke at 6, made coffee, and sat on the lanai watching the sunrise paint the lake gold. At 8, Todd loaded the suitcases into their minivan. Lauren moved like a ghost, avoiding eye contact. The kids hugged Maggie tearfully. Will we still see you? Harper asked. Of course, Maggie said. We'll do movie nights, sleepovers when it works for everyone, Sunday dinners, just not living here full time. Lauren finally approached as Todd buckled Ethan in. I hope you're happy, she said bitterly. Maggie looked at her daughter, really looked, the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear she was trying to hide behind anger. I'm not happy, Maggie said quietly. I'm heartbroken, but I'm also certain this is right. Lauren's chin trembled. For a moment, Maggie thought she might hug her. Instead, she turned and got in the van. They drove away without another word. Maggie stood in the driveway long after the minivan disappeared around the corner. Then she went inside, closed the door, and for the first time in 3 days, heard silence. True silence. She walked through each room, touching the walls, the furniture, reclaiming the space with her presence. In the craft room, she folded Ethan's Spider-Man comforter and set it aside. In the office, she unplugged Todd's chargers and coiled the cords neatly. She opened every window to let the breeze blow through, carrying out the lingering scent of other people's lives. Then she poured herself a cup of coffee, took her watercolor pad to the lanai, and painted the sunrise she'd watched alone. The next 4 days on Anna Maria Island were a revelation. She walked the beach at dawn, read 2 entire novels, ate seafood overlooking the Gulf without anyone complaining about prices, slept 10 hours a night without interruption. On Wednesday evening, as she packed to return home, her phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "We're at the Residence Inn on University Parkway. It's fine, kids are settled. I've been thinking a lot." Maggie stared at the message for a long time before replying. "I've been thinking too. When you're ready, let's talk. Really talk." 3 weeks later, they met for lunch at a quiet cafe halfway between Sunhaven and the hotel. Lauren looked tired, but less angry. She said after they ordered, "I was awful to you. I see that now. I was scared and embarrassed, and I took it out on you instead of saying thank you for the help you did give." Maggie reached across the table and took her hand. "I wasn't perfect either," she said. "I should have set boundaries years ago. We both learned some hard lessons." They talked for 3 hours. Lauren admitted she and Todd had relied on Maggie as a safety net too often, that they needed to build their own resilience. Maggie admitted she'd confused being needed with being loved, and that saying no didn't make her a bad mother or grandmother. They made a new agreement. Visits, yes. Sleepovers by invitation. Emergency help discussed openly and with gratitude. The kids started coming for planned weekends, 2 at a time with clear rules and routines. Maggie discovered she loved having them when it was her choice, not her obligation. 6 months later, Todd landed a new job. They moved into a rental house 20 minutes away. One Saturday evening, the whole family came for dinner on Maggie's lanai. Grilled shrimp, laughter, stories. As the sun set over the lake, Maggie raised her glass. "To Mom," she said, "for teaching us that loving your family sometimes means loving yourself first." Maggie smiled, tears in her eyes, and clinked her glass against theirs. In the quiet that followed, with fireflies blinking over the water and her grandkids' voices floating on the warm air, Maggie felt something she hadn't known she was missing. Not just peace, wholeness. She was still the matriarch, still the one who loved deepest and fiercest, but now, finally, she was also Maggie, 72, vibrant, opinionated, and gloriously, unapologetically herself. Her house was still quiet most days, but when it filled with voices, it was because she had opened the door, not because someone else had walked through it uninvited. And that, Maggie knew, was the greatest gift she'd ever given her family, the gift of seeing her, really seeing her.